Welcome to the Never Ending Backlog podcast, your place for short reviews from a gamer with the goal of reducing his backlog. From adventures to sandboxes, join our host as we walk through a collection of unplayed treasures. Now, let's take a look at the featured game of this episode of the Never Ending Backlog.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Never Ending Backlog. I'm your host Zach, and on today's episode I am revisiting a childhood gem of mine that I have not had the pleasure of playing on the PC yet. That is Sonic Adventure DX. I had originally planned on doing both Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 in this episode, however I didn't feel I could do them both justice, and Sonic Adventure 1 DX deserved my full attention. Both games I have had the privilege of playing on my Sega Dreamcasts when I was younger, but Sonic Adventure was where I spent most of my time. Well, that and Crazy Taxi, as you could have guessed. So for Steam, it's an ancient lurking within the Master Emerald has been unleashed from its slumber by the devious Dr. Eggman, and is on the verge of becoming the ultimate monster using the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Only Sonic and his friends are heroic enough to put a stop to Dr. Eggman and his evil minions. It is a 3D third-person action game made in 1998, with the DX PC version being ported in 2011. The developer is Sega. For current price, you can get it for $7.99. You can also purchase this in the Sega Dreamcast collection, which also includes Crazy Taxi. Just saying. According to Is There Any Deal, historical low for this game is $1.09. And let's just jump right into the review. The install and startup. The game installed quickly. It's quite small, but then again, it was based on the Sega Dreamcast game with a few director cut items. Not sure what that means. However, it's a small game. The big perk of the game, once I started for the first time, is it loaded into the intro screen with a full configuration suite. I could set up audio, video, controls before playing the game for the first time, which is really nice rather than having a separate config file, which you'll hear about in later episodes. The game supported multiple resolutions, but the actual game dimensions were 4x3, so anything widescreen with bars on the side, similar to if you were playing ports of classic video games anyway. So the Dreamcast was the square screen more so than widescreen, and that's just the way this supports as well, so if you're okay with some bars on the side, it's fine. I remember seeing the intro video for the first time and being blown away when I saw it on the Dreamcast. It was Sonic in the human world, similar to when you play Mario on the Switch, where Mario can walk around in the city with people. So walking around the human world is kind of an odd experience for the first time for both characters. I mean, Mario is a very odd looking human when you can put him next to normal sized humans. You're like, what happened to this man? Sonic, same way. Why is there a blue hedgehog? Why is he so tall? Why does he wear red shoes? A lot of questions. Kind of weird, but neat. Especially considering the size difference and the anatomy differences between both of the characters. It's weird. The video is neat, played some great music, showed the water chaos monster attacking the city, and Sonic rushing to save the day. It was cool. It was definitely different than what you're used to with Sega and Sonic. This is a very serious and gritty one, which I thought was neat. Playing around on the beach and the pool was surreal. When I was younger, I would play this game on the Dreamcast in the wintertime and pretend I was on the beach. For reference, I lived in a very snowy part of Michigan. So anytime a game had beaches, so Mario Kart had beaches, basically anything that had a beach or tropical, I fell in love with. So honestly, I think the Dreamcast holds up quite well regarding graphics. That's why I think all Dreamcast era arcade machines that run on the Naomi machine just look amazing. And for the console that is 22 years old in December, it's pretty impressive actually. And this game looks nice. Sonic is very crisp. He's clean. He has, instead of like the polygon games that traditionally came out in 1998, he has smooth corners, his hair flows. It looks really, really nice. For audio, had a terrific soundtrack. Playing in the station square is absolutely iconic for anyone that played the Sega Dreamcast game. They didn't change the audio for what I can tell. The sound effects are the same. Everything's the same. When you go to the beach and islands, it's a gorgeous tropical soundtrack. Obviously, I was going to state that. But my favorite song of all time is when you get to the Mystic Ruins, which is a jungle area where Tails' workshop is. Great sound effect. It's kind of like it has singing and harmony. It's kind of like The Lion King. Really good soundtrack. I mean, honestly, check out the soundtrack for this game. I think you can find it in a few different places. I highly recommend it. It's really well done. I think the voices they choose for Sonic, Amy, Tails were the best of all time. It's exactly what I imagine Sonic should always sound like. Tails especially sounds like Tails. So I don't know if it's just because that's what I first heard him talking, outside the Genesis. Obviously, he didn't talk in the Genesis. So, but honestly, I think the voices they chose for these people were the best. The sound effects were traditional Sonic, from the ring collecting to completing levels. Even the checkpoints that you'd get to in the Sega Genesis games has the same sound effect, and it has the same look. So it's nostalgia at its finest. Regarding controls, I initially started it off as defaulting for keyboard, and I couldn't choose my Steam controller. However, I quickly realized my Steam controller wasn't on. Once I turned it on, I was immediately able to start using it without any configuration, which was awesome. I didn't even have to exit the game. It just picked it right up. So I really like it. I really like that about the Steam controller. It works really well with Steam. Not surprisingly, it just really works though. The big issue I have with controls is the button you use to spin on the ground, spin, is also the action button and chat button. So unless you're aiming at exactly what you're expecting to talk to or interact with, or whether that's picking something up or talking to somebody, you sometimes spin right past it by accident. So if you're facing the back of a person, you'll spin through that person, even though you're looking right at them. So it's kind of a frustrating experience, but just you'll have to get used to it. You have to really take your time on actually aiming your person. Difficulty, initially I always thought this game was challenging. However, it seems rather easy now. However, I remember quite a bit of the game. So, choosing the correct paths, knowing where to go, knowing where everything is, the order of operations essentially was mostly from memory. So I'm assuming that made it a lot easier. I do remember a lot of times I'll be like, where do I go next? Where do I go next? And there are these pink floating orbs that kind of guide you along the way. And it works pretty well. The camera does a pretty good job at locking onto enemies as well. And since it's a single stick game from the Dreamcast, it handles better than I actually remember. The Steam controller is perfect for this. It has a single controller. You don't use the other, touch sensors on it. The buttons are well laid out. It's pretty easy. Regarding gameplay, it's odd playing this game without the memory card unit. For anyone that doesn't know, on the Dreamcast, they actually had a little LCD screen or LED screen on the actual controller. That would be removable, and that's where you can manage your save games. You actually could delete the saved games on the memory card. You didn't have to go into the system or anything like that. But they also, a lot of games had mini games and stuff like that. And in this one, you'd collect eggs and raise them, and little Kaio, it's chaos, just minus the S. So Kaio are little creatures, and you can evolve them with animals you collect from the Sonic game. So in Sonic at the end of the levels on Genesis, you jump on the pod and all the little creatures would be free because Dr. Robotnik was stealing them. The same thing in this situation. You destroy creatures and then the monsters are free, and you can actually kind of like breeding, I guess, with the KO, which is a kind of an odd experience, but it was cool to do on your memory card unit because you could take the memory card out with you and take it with you like school and all these places. And it was kind of like a Tamagotchi where you just raise it. So that was pretty cool. And then you put it in the game, and then you actually see them in your game on the Dreamcast. So it was a cool idea, way ahead of its time, personally. Playing the first beach level to get to Tails is a terrific first level. It has a whale chasing you. Once you land on your first beach after free falling was so well executed. And I recommend this for anybody. Like, if you're trying to decide whether or not this game is for you, play the very first level. And if you like it, you'll love the entire game. If you're, kind of thrown off by it, don't play the game. It's not for you. It follows a very similar kind of line. There are different levels like casinos and stuff like that. And the casino levels remind me of Nights, which is really cool. But yeah, that's a really good first impression. I mean, there's no doubt they did that for a reason. Just like Sonic Adventure 2 did the skateboarding down the city, like the city streets, kind of like Crazy Taxi. So, it's a tech demo, and I think this one was for Sonic Adventure number 1 with the whale chasing you and you're trying to outrun it on the beach. Really cool, but yeah, definitely try it out. For achievements, I've earned 1 achievement, which has become friends with Tails. There are 15 total. However, most are becoming friends with people, clearing storylines, etc. In my opinion, it is one of the best Sonic 3D games in the series. It has a terrific soundtrack, great storyline, and it was really great first entry into 3D Sonic besides Sonic 3D. It holds up quite well for being a 22-year-old game. For reference, the other games released in 1998 were Half-Life, great game, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, great game, Metal Gear Solid, StarCraft, Resident Evil 2, and many more. I mean, just think about this. 1998 was a killer year for gamers. I mean, Half-Life, StarCraft, and Resident Evil 2 all in the same year. That's amazing. Another pro of this game is playing as different characters, especially the robot E102 is a fun quality. Each character has their own story, and they all tie together at one point in the storyline. So it's kind of similar to the character stories in the show Lost. You know, they all have their different little components, they all have their own thing, and then they eventually all merge into one storyline. So I think that's really cool, and there are a ton of people you can play as. There's 6 or 7 characters you can play as. For cons, it makes me wish there was a Sonic Shuffle on the PC now. You might not be aware, Sonic Shuffle was a Mario Party-esque game for the Sonic characters, essentially. And, you know, it's relatively normal. Sonic and Mario tend to go back and forth with each other. The cool thing about Sonic Shuffle, though, is, you know, instead of dice that the Mario Party series has, Sonic Shuffle had cards, thus the shuffle. And the really neat thing is then the memory card unit that you'd have on your controller, your Dreamcast, remember I mentioned it had the screen on it, it actually showed the cards you had in your hand. So if you had 3 or 4 controllers, because it supported 4 controllers, you'd all actually have your own little memory card unit and actually show your hands. So you could see your hands without seeing on the screen and giving it away from each other. So I think that's really cool. Another con is it's a great way to relive the past. However, there are far better and more modern Sonic 3D games out there. And unless you're a huge Sonic fan, this one's still better on the Dreamcast. I mean, the Dreamcast is where I started. If you can get a Dreamcast, they're not that expensive right now. Go ahead and do it on that. It's better on there than the PC, no matter how good the PC does it. Not supporting widescreen is somewhat of a bummer. I understand that it wasn't natively supported for the Dreamcast. However, it was ported over to PC, and therefore it could have been added. You know, in 2011, they did have widescreen monitors. So I understand it's, you know, they're trying to keep it somewhat the same, but it is also a director's cut. And apparently the DX version has removed a lot of stuff. Nothing jumps out to me personally. However, I hadn't played it very long. And that's an extremely big bummer if they removed crucial or interesting parts of the game. And according to the reviews, they did. And there's a huge essay story out there and these blog posts dedicated to how much they butchered this game. And it's like, well, if you're going to change it that much from the Dreamcast, then just support, you know, widescreen too, guys. Just saying. Interesting story. The game actually shows the moment Sonic started calling Dr. Robotnik, which is the evil protagonist, Eggman. And in most later games, it's always referred to as Eggman. Or even the shows, it's referred to as Eggman instead of Dr. Robotnik. And if you play the early Sega Genesis games, it was always Dr. Robotnik. So, you know, for me, I always forgot about this part because I always remember seeing Dr. Robotnik. And then I started playing the newer ones. It's like, why do you keep calling him Eggman? Like, did they change his name? And then I played this, and relatively early in the game, he's like, I'm Dr. Robotnik. And he's like, you look like an Eggman. And then they kind of go back. But I think that's like where the initial started, where they started calling him Eggman. So that was pretty neat. And final thoughts, you know, I recommend this game for anyone that's either a diehard Sonic fan, as I mentioned earlier, and is looking for a new experience, or perhaps those who have had a Dreamcast in the past, can't get their hold on another one, and are looking to get back into the game and relive it. I think it holds up fairly well for the age, and honestly, it's just a well-designed game. You know, if you're looking for a new era of Sonic, so really high, super great graphics and really creative stuff, there are far better graphical options out there in games like Sonic Generations and so on. But I think for $7.99, this is a great game. And I highly recommend checking it out. So that was Sonic Adventure DX on Steam. You can get it now. You can also get it within the Dreamcast bundle, which includes many great games. So that's it for my review for today, and have a terrific day.